Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today to learn about how travel and tourism impacts key areas of economic development, working hand in hand to build a very healthy and diverse economy for our island. My name is Leah Chandler. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Discover Puerto Rico, the island's official destination marketing organization. And today I'm joined by a really awesome lineup of influential leaders in Puerto Rico and a key research partner who helped uncover the insights that we're going to share with you today. Today, you are going to be hearing from Amir Elan from Longwoods International, who led our Halo Effect study, and later Alicia Valentine, our Director of Research and Analytics, who will lead a panel that we're excited to really share with you. They're going to be joined by panelists Ella Woger, the Chief Operating Officer at Invest Puerto Rico, Juan Agosto, President of the Puerto Rico Chamber of Commerce, and Alan Tavares, Chief Marketing Officer at Brands of Puerto Rico. A destination's brand is truly what sets it apart and sets the tone not only for the area's travel and tourism industry, but for all of the industries in a state or a city or a region, or in our case, an island. In 2018, and I'm just going to be a few seconds with these slides, but wanted to set up a few things for you. In 2018, when the DMO began, we knew the destination brand was one of the biggest challenges we faced. Obviously, there'd be a lot of other challenges to come, but at the time, we immediately set out to understand consumer perception of Puerto Rico's brand through really robust consumer testing and research, including focus groups, creative concept testing, brand perception research, and even local stakeholder interviews. Our initial assessment about the challenges our brand faced were confirmed in this research. After many, many years of Puerto Rico changing logos and changing taglines and changing campaigns, consumers were really confused. There was a very low level of brand awareness, almost no equity in any of the past brand identities, and consumers were unsure of what Puerto Rico offered in terms of experiences and product. Through a very methodical process that was rooted in research, we honed in on 5 key brand pillars that you can see here that would really lay the foundation for our brand positioning and help us begin to differentiate ourselves among a literal sea of competitors. That process led us to what we kind of call a manifesto, from which we would reposition our brand, stake our claim, and develop all of our campaigns from, rooted in authenticity, warmth, and pride. This brand will really grow our position tourism globally. We're already seeing the effects of that, but equally important, it will significantly impact industries well beyond tourism to help grow our economy, which is what we're here to talk about today. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Amir Elan. Amir's a 32-year tourism industry veteran. He's the president and CEO of Longwoods International, a market research consultancy specializing in the tourism industry. Prior to joining Longwoods, Amir's career included really notable posts such as VP at Brand USA and State Tourism Director for the state of Ohio. He's been recognized with tons of industry awards and honors, including the Top 25 Minds in Tourism by HSMAI, and has made regular appearances in national media during the pandemic as the media really looked to those tourism experts in research to help guide sort of the positioning and what's to come for tourism in our space. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amir.
Well, thank you very much, Leah. Thank you for the kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. I really wish I was on the island with you today. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, in my home office, and it's about 31 degrees and very gray skies. They say we might get a little bit of snow today. So boy, how I wish we could be in Puerto Rico today. So anyway, let's talk about this halo effect research that we've done for you. Real quickly, I'll say just a couple words about our company, Longwoods International. We are a market research consultancy that specializes in the travel and tourism industry, as Leah said. We've been around for about 42 years. Our US headquarters is Columbus, Ohio. We have an office in Canada and Toronto as well, and a few offices around the country. We work with about 150 different destinations, corporate brands, and so forth. And again, 98% of them are in the travel and tourism industry. And of course, we were very honored to have this project with Discover Puerto Rico. Our specialty, as I said, is in the travel and tourism industry. We do a lot of things like visitor research, sentiment research, destination image research, advertising effectiveness, and a whole slew of things. But we're going to talk about something called the halo effect, which we pioneered, a piece of research we pioneered about 6 years ago, and talk about how we applied that to Puerto Rico here. So the halo effect. The halo effect was a term that was actually coined in World War I by a famous sociologist, psychologist by the name of Edmund Thorndike. He did a project for the US Army in the First World War that actually took a look at soldiers that were drafted into the Army. And he noticed there was a pattern that if a soldier showed up in the Army when they first enlisted, that they were maybe well groomed and seemed to know how to put their uniform on straight and so forth. Those were the ones that had an easier time and were quickly and easily promoted in the minds of their instructors versus those that might have been a little bit overweight or looked a little sloppy and so forth. And the premise of it was that if you present a good image of yourself, then that image has a halo, and people take those positive attributes that, oh, well, this person looks nice, they look smart, then they must be smart and they must be talented. So we're going to go ahead and promote them. And guess what? Those nice, smart looking young men in the military were promoted quickly to officers, while the other guys were not. And so this was the halo effect term. Now, let's talk about it as it applies to tourism. Well, my background and my career, as Leah gave you a brief bio on me there, I've been in the travel and tourism industry for 32 years, a significant portion of that in destination marketing. And before I got into the whole research side of things, and I've always loved the data, so I'm kind of a research nerd myself. But one thing for sure, as we were destination marketers, that we all knew was that it's no secret. Even those in economic development know that when it comes to site selection, it's no secret. If you are people like to live and work where they like to play. But there was never any data that really connected the dots between that. And so until Longwoods took a look at it about 6 years ago, we had a client that actually started with our client up in Michigan. They started this campaign, you may have heard of it, it's called the Pure Michigan brand, the Pure Michigan campaign. They started it around 2003, and they noticed after about 5 or 6 years, they started seeing some changes as for the first time ever, they were promoting Michigan nationally with some very, very strong advertising. They noticed that all of a sudden, they were getting reports of people buying second homes along Michigan's coastline. Well, that's nothing new. People buy second homes around Michigan all the time. But these people, instead of coming from surrounding states, were coming from all the way from the East Coast, from New York. Now, New York's on the East Coast. Why are these people from New York all of a sudden buying places in Michigan? They saw uptick in companies that were looking, that weren't considering Michigan before as a place to do business, all of a sudden doing inquiries for site selection. So there was all this anecdotal evidence, but nothing really connected the dots. So they approached us, and we started doing what was the very first case study of taking a look at, is there a correlation between an effective destination marketing campaign and lifting not only the image of the destination as a place to visit, but also lifting the image of the destination for other economic development attributes beyond tourism. So this is basically the reason why we were brought in to do this project for Puerto Rico. We needed to take a look at, evaluate one of the most recent ad campaigns that was done nationally here in the U.S. and taking a look at its impact, not just the awareness of the campaign, but what it did for the image of the destination for other economic development attributes. Now, we've done this since 2014. We did our very first benchmark case study. We've replicated this about 100 times, and we've seen very similar patterns in every case where there's been a successful destination marketing campaign for tourism. So let's take a look a little deeper here. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we worked with the Discover Puerto Rico team. They gave us their recent media plans. We looked at the markets where they were spending their advertising. We then worked with our supplier, which is the largest panel, online consumer research panels, which allowed us to go and identify households in those markets where the advertising plan would have run. And we surveyed 800 folks in those markets and and put them through a whole battery of questions, about a 20-25 minute survey, and asked them a few key questions about their past visitation to Puerto Rico. Did they come or didn't they in the last 2 years? We asked them if we asked them if they saw the advertising, they're aware of the marketing campaign. I'll show you how we did that in just a moment in there. And we also asked them about their image of Puerto Rico on a whole host of issues. So let's take a look at what we find out here. The quick short story here, and I'm not going to read these slides to you, but and I know that this will be made available to anybody who likes it, but at the end of the day, what we saw was a pattern that was very similar we've seen in other destinations, where you have an effective marketing campaign. Puerto Rico had a good media plan. There was a good level of awareness of the marketing campaign, and we saw that there was a significant lift in the image. Those who saw the ad campaign for Discover Puerto Rico not only rated the image of the destination as a place to visit as higher than those who didn't see the campaign, but also rated a whole host of economic development attributes higher than those who did not see the campaign. Same thing when we asked recent visitors to the island, they had higher image than those who had not visited recently. And then, of course, there is a sweet spot, which I will show you in a few minutes, of if these folks had seen the advertising, they've visited the island in the past couple of years, then their image of the island as a place to do business, start a business, find a job, etc., is much higher than those who did none of the above. That's the real sweet spot. You want them to see your marketing campaign. You want them to come visit and fall in love with the island for so many things, even beyond tourism. So let's get into the data. You're tired of looking at stats or looking at the words. Let's get into pictures and charts. So here's what we have here. So we started off with advertising awareness. The Discover Puerto Rico team gave us a sampling of their media plan and the creative advertising that they ran in the key markets that we showed you there. We showed them a whole, and these respondents that answered our survey then were shown these creative elements depending on what market they were in. And we were, first of all, just asking the awareness. Did they recall seeing this campaign? Were they aware? And what you see here, and you saw there's some pretty big media markets there, very competitive media markets. And for the ad budget that Discover Puerto Rico had, they had a very strong awareness. You saw basically a combined 38% awareness. So 38% of the people in those markets were aware of the advertising. So you're off to a good start right there. So let's talk about the halo effect of the destination. So as I told you, we were talking to folks that had seen the advertising and those who hadn't seen the campaign. And when we asked these folks about Puerto Rico, not just as a place to visit, but as you can see here, a good place to live, a good place to start a career, a good place to start a business, a good place to attend college, a good place to purchase a vacation home, or a good place to retire. Now we put this on a 10-point scale. So we asked people, how strongly do they agree with this statement? And those who rated 8 or higher, so 8, 9, 10, they were said to strongly agree with those statements. And as you can see here, this is the percent of people who strongly agree versus who are aware of the advertising versus those who were unaware. So the green were aware, the blue were unaware. So look at that, the first one, a good place to live. 41% of the respondents from the survey who had seen the advertising has strongly agreed with the statement that Puerto Rico is a good place to live, as opposed to only 14% who had not seen the creative. And you go right down the chart, you see it's almost the same. It's very, very similar pattern here. 40% versus 14 on a good place to start a career. 42 versus 12 on a good place to start a business. And you can kind of go down there yourself when you're seeing the screen here. But you see that it's somewhere between a 22 to 30 point difference, basically an average of a 25 point difference. higher from those who were aware versus those who were unaware. So just the strong campaign image alone had a tremendous lift on the economic development factors beyond tourism. Now, we also asked the question, as I said, had you visited the island in the past 2 years? And you can see that there's a similar pattern of lift from those who had visited the island versus those who had not visited the island. So you look at this and you see a good place to live, for example, 47% who had visited in the last 2 years said, absolutely, it's a really good place to live. Whereas only 21% said, yeah, I think it's a good place to live for those who never visited. And you can see it's the same pattern right down the road from career, business, college, home, second home, and retirement in there. Again, almost the same as the advertising awareness, about 24% lift on average in there. Now, let's talk about the sweet spot. As I said earlier, ideally, you want them to see the advertising campaign because it's a good one. You want them to come visit because the campaign did its job, got them to come visit Puerto Rico. And then we asked them the questions. So for those who were aware of the advertising and they came for a visit, look at that, a good place to live, 54% strongly agree versus only 13% that were unaware and never came to visit. 41% difference in that. A good place to start a career, same thing, just 42% difference. Good place to start a business, look at really, really important. Look at that, 52-point difference, 52 points there. Good place to attend college, 42-point improvement. Good place to purchase a vacation home, 37-point improvement. And a good place to retire, again, a 32% point difference there. So basically, you got them to see the campaign, you got them to visit, you then created an average lift of 41% versus those who never saw and never came in there. That's the sweet spot, and that's what's helping you from an economic development perspective. Now, that's the economic development. Let me just close on the tourism side because we gotta show what the impact they're at there. By the way, does the campaign drive intent to visit the island? It absolutely does. As you can see, 60% of those who saw the advertising campaign had indicated to us that they definitely would intend to visit the island in the next 12 months. Now, and this was done just this past summer here in July. So even with COVID going on, you see the intent that was driving the demand, the intent there versus 14% unaware there. And again, for those who had visited in the past 2 years, 68% indicated return to the island, which is great. And then the aware versus the unaware, visited the island, 84% intend to come back to Puerto Rico. So just fantastic news all around. Boy, I wish every presentation I could give had good news like that. And for that, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm now going to turn things back over to Alicia, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Amir. Discover Puerto Rico has found this work very valuable, and we've long known that tourism marketing not only influences consumers to visit, but improves perception of a destination. But in realizing that the gains in image extend beyond just tourism attributes is important to the broader picture of community and economic development. So with that, I'd like to invite the rest of our panelists to turn on your cameras and mics. We have Ella Woger from Invest Puerto Rico, the Chief Operating Officer, Juan Agosto from the Puerto Rico Chamber of Commerce, and Alan Taveras from Brands of Puerto Rico. So thank you all for joining us this morning. And I'd like to talk through some of the key takeaways from this halo effect research. So one of the, of course, biggest takeaways is about how Discover Puerto Rico's initiatives have significantly influenced the economic development image of the island. So Ella, I'd like to start with you. How do you see the effects of increased tourism on economic development on the island?
Thank you, Alicia. Good morning, everyone. It really is a pleasure to be here today. As Alicia said, my name is Ella Woger. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Invest Puerto Rico, which is the entity that is formally charged with attracting new business and investment to the island. So we are essentially Discover Puerto Rico's sister organization or cousin organization, and you know, we work together. And so thank you, Amir, also for sharing that research that Longswood conducted. I'm glad, you know, there is, you know, empirical data, you know, on the effects on this halo effect, which we've always, you know, known. But I do think, Alicia, to your question, tourism definitely plays an important role in helping raise Puerto Rico's profile, you know, on the world stage. It really is our calling card. You know, there is no doubt that, you know, our weather, our historic landmarks, our vibrant culture, our beaches easily draw attention, right? And once we have, you know, those eyes on us, it really opens a door to build on our storytelling and to positioning the island's value proposition in other industries and sectors where Puerto Rico is really well positioned to be a global player, be it the knowledge service economy, be it the emerging tech hub and ecosystem that is currently happening on the island, which is really exciting and amazing, or Puerto Rico's historic leadership in bioscience manufacturing. So this really in turn drives economic development on the island. I also think that you know, a robust tourism sector reflects what we call quality of place. You know, it's a preview, if you will, of the island's offerings within the context of what it's like to live and work here. And this is particularly important when it comes to attracting business and investment to the island. So, you know, as the entity charged with new business attraction, we know from our work that among the key things that companies consider when they're relocating their business to the island are the quality of talent, which is top notch here on the island, the attractive policy and the competitive benefits, and what we call the quality of place, which really can best be appreciated firsthand when you come and you see what Puerto Rico has to offer. You know, when folks come here, they become, you know, a captive audience, if you will, that witness firsthand a glimpse of what it could potentially be like to live and work here. And so I think, you know, ultimately increased tourism just sends the message that Puerto Rico is open for business and development, and that in turn translates as a driver for economic development on the island.
Thanks, Ella. I'm especially curious, as Invest Puerto Rico is charged with investment in individual communities, how tourism impacts economic development at the local level.
Absolutely, and it's a great question. You know, when we're talking about tourism in parts of the island outside of the San Juan Metro, you know, the added benefit is really being able to showcase communities and regions that sometimes go under the radar, like the beautiful west coast of the island, so that the communities there can shine and potentially attract investment in other economic activities. Like logistics, bioscience, aerospace, to name a few. And all this new economic activity creates just a snowball effect that means really good things for the region. So, you know, if you think about a hotel goes up, you know, it leads to job creation, the establishment of restaurants, shops, and so on and so forth. So an entire economic chain is established. And I say this because I was recently at the west coast of the island, which is beautiful. I was in Aguadilla, and it's such a beautiful part of the island. But what people don't know is that there are so many exciting things happening from an investment standpoint. You know, the west coast is positioned to be a transshipment hub for Puerto Rico, and that's unprecedented. So again, you know, when tourism highlights communities, it just automatically sheds light on all the other investment opportunities that are available in the regions as well.
Great, thank you. Alan, I'd like to pull you into this conversation. Brands of Puerto Rico recently worked with Discover Puerto Rico on the Small Business Saturday promotion, and really taking a look at some direct experience in how individual businesses can be impacted by tourism promotion. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, good morning to everyone. For us, it was a great experience working with a super talented group, specifically when you put authentic products. That Brands of Puerto Rico is a marketplace of authentic brands and products from Puerto Rico, and we look to help small businesses in the island export their products. So just putting tourism with makers here in the island, with coffee growers, farmers, artisans. It was great in terms of the numbers, not only an increase of revenue when you compare the same time last year from this year of more than 1,000%, but just the time on the website. I was looking at the numbers, and people that came through Discover Puerto Rico spent 5 minutes on the website. That's double the time of an average consumer. So people are really interested not just on the touristic side of the beaches and the hotels, but people want to learn about the talent in Puerto Rico and the products that they make. So for us, this experience is not only something great for our business and the businesses that we support, but also it is again a confirmation that authentic products, authentic makers are part of the touristic approach that Puerto Rico needs to be working.
Great. So another takeaway that we heard from Amir was that experiencing the island firsthand, coupled with that advertising exposure, has the greatest impact on intent to visit, with 80% of those that were aware planning to come to the island, return to the island in the next 12 months. So of course, Amir, I'm sure all clients want to understand, well, how does that compare with everybody else? So can you shed some light on some of the similar studies that you conducted and where Puerto Rico nets out on that?
Sure. Well, of course, destinations are highly competitive. There's a lot of competition out there for the tourism dollar, but also then for the economic site selection, economic development site selection. So, we've replicated this study well over 100 times in the past 6 years. We immediately saw that this was obviously scoring very high compared to others. We took a look back, and literally, your halo effect study really performed about 85% better than most of others. You were in the top 15 percentile of comparable studies that we've seen. So again, what does that tell us? That tells us that you had a message that was on target. You were hitting some of the right hot buttons, both in terms of consumers from a travel perspective, but also in terms of those economic development attributes beyond tourism. So congratulations.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you. So I'm curious in terms of that idea of messaging and what leads to increased visitation. I'm curious what type of campaigns end up driving the largest returns, if there's any patterns that you've noticed in your work with other clients.
Yeah, well, we've done a lot of image and advertising effectiveness research over the years, and really the strong, the campaigns that perform the best and all have a very similar type of pattern. There's authenticity there, and of course, just reading your brand promise, that's a key tenet of it right there. So what you're showing is authentic experiences. Is very experiential, and successful campaigns tend to be very experiential, as well as again, focusing on a bit of uniqueness and excitement combined together. At the end of the day, it boils down to get on travelers' short list for destination selection. You've really got to demonstrate to them that there's a unique experience. There's something exciting in there, some type of excitement factor, and something in it for them. Let's face it, there's a lot of destinations with great beaches. There's a lot of destinations that are island destinations, but there's only one Puerto Rico, and you've done a very good job of showing that what makes Puerto Rico unique. And destinations that are able to stand up and show their authenticity time and time again in their marketing tend to have better performing campaigns.
Well, that's great. And certainly during COVID, it's an unknown time, but we want to continue to remain top of mind and make sure that we are communicating those unique experiences and the culture of the island and what makes us unique, and not just another island beach destination. So Juan, I'd like to pull you into the conversation, and I'm curious, in your opinion, how does the island see firsthand the future economic development opportunities to the island and the Chamber of Commerce in what you're seeing?
Morning, everyone. The Chamber of Commerce has between its members about 80,000 employees in the island. We have about 600 members spread throughout the island. And what struck me was that as I was seeing the results, is the positive publicity when you add that to experience, it goes to a double impact effect. The study shows about 64% would say that it's a good place to start a business. And if you couple that with what we see here, a vibrant community of over 44,000 businesses, and of those, 24,000 have 5 employees or less, I can almost feel people coming to the island, seeing the vibrant small business community and thinking about, well, this makes sense for a retirement or for coming to work or other things that will promote our economic activity. And also, it came with the optimism that you see in Puerto Rico, and I think that's very important when a tourist comes to the island and then sees the optimism of the local business owners and people around, and that glues both of them together. And we have data to show that. We just did a business confidence index. The Chamber of Commerce did, and that showed that future expectations of economic activity are up 3%, even during these pandemic times. And what about the consumers, right? Well, we did a study too. We did a consumer confidence index, and it showed that even though there's a lag between Puerto Rico and the US, still about 10 points, we are 12 points over Latin America, and we are 1 point over world results. So what it shows is that when you coupled what you guys are doing at the DMO, and it's coupled with people coming here and looking at our vibrant business community, opportunities will follow. And the Chamber of Commerce, we receive people coming from different areas of the US looking for incentives that there are in Puerto Rico and trying to establish here. And we service those. And we can tell you that it's a good marriage between coming to Puerto Rico and watching the campaign. So it's good for business.
Great. Ella, did you have something to add to this?
I did actually, as I was listening to Juan talk about this optimism, that really is palpable. And I want to tie that to something that Leah said earlier, which is resiliency. I think Puerto Rico has proven that we are a resilient community. And that, is not only, for the local folks here, but from a business standpoint, we are very resilient. And that is actually something that at Invest Puerto Rico, we want to include as part of Puerto Rico's value proposition, because I think more than ever, the circumstances and the challenges that Puerto Rico has overcome has only made it stronger. And so I hear, Juan speak about, the optimism and the resiliency. And I think it definitely just really plays a big role at this particularly moment in history, because I think it definitely has become an intrinsic part of Puerto Rico's value proposition from a tourism standpoint, but also from an investment and business standpoint.
I think that's a really interesting perspective, Ella. And I'm curious, Alan, how much kind of that idea of resiliency comes into play in the Brands of Puerto Rico product, and how the culture is front and center when you're interacting with visitors?
Yeah, I think resilience is part of our brand culture. We surpassed Maria, the hurricanes, and it's really important to say that Puerto Rico's ecosystem, especially the tech ecosystem that is powered by organizations such as Paralel 18, Guayacan, are a great support group for local and foreign entrepreneurs. We were part of the second cohort of Paralel 18, and our colleagues were people from the States, from Europe, from Latin America, and that mix of foreign entrepreneurs with local made us an even better company, that we were able to raise money from funds outside of Puerto Rico, especially in the United States. So the more people that come here and start a business through these programs will make a better local class of entrepreneurs. Also, in terms of resiliency, you can see in our products, we have people that used to be working for the pharma industry are now are making their own coffee or their own artisanal soaps. So entrepreneurship is a great story here in Puerto Rico. I see it every day, how people are not giving up and just, how, as we say in Spanish, dando la pelea. So I think it's really important to showcase those stories, because those stories will render more people coming and a better ecosystem for all entrepreneurs in the island.
That's a great perspective. Thank you. So another key takeaway was that the consumers, aware of Puerto Rico's advertising efforts, rated the destination significantly higher on all these economic development attributes. And many consumers recalled seeing at least one of these ads. So Amir, I'm curious, in your opinion, what do you think that visitors rate the island higher than non-visitors? Obviously, lots of those economic development attributes, but in your experience with some previous clients, do you see any of those being more relevant than others?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it speaks to that, you're able to seal the deal, so to speak. You're doing an effective job of marketing the island to visitors, and then they come in and it shows that you are meeting or exceeding their expectations, right? And because you are doing so, then whether it's whether it's the locals that they encounter, whether it's the service staff, whether it's the infrastructure, the tourism infrastructure that they're engaging with there, and if they venture out of your standard tourism zones and kind of go maybe into some of the local neighborhoods and have some various experiences around the island, they're clearly whatever their perception was before visiting the island has been met or exceeded, and that's really what's happening there. So in terms of what specific attributes, again, it's that excitement, it's the uniqueness. It's something they clearly weren't getting at home, and was hitting whatever their personal hot buttons were. And you've done a good job with that, because the data shows it.
That's great. And Ella, I'm curious if you feel that the messaging around the island that the DMO creates is closing the gap and encouraging travel.
Yeah, I do, Alicia. I think, what the Halo study shows is that, overall, the messaging is causing a positive impact on the audience's perspective on Puerto Rico. And so an improvement, on the island's image combined with the unique tourism assets are definitely factors that influence a consumer's decision favorably for Puerto Rico. And so we're living in challenging times, and we are all aware of that due to the pandemic. And so, we won't be able to see the immediate effect of this relatively quickly, but I do think that a continued awareness campaign through the marketing and advertising channels will be key in getting the tourism industry back on track, when we reopen. I also want to point out that I think, given COVID, we really need to leverage the recognitions that Puerto Rico has gotten in handling the pandemic as a way of reassuring travelers that the island is just taking the necessary precautions to ensure the safety of its visitors. Just recently, the airport got a recognition by the Airports Council International, recognizing the measures taken in COVID prevention. And so I think these are the kinds of things that can be leveraged positively to encourage travelers in the future. So I do think that all these, campaigns are really effectively working towards closing that gap. And when we finally are able to fully, reopen, I think it's definitely going to make a difference.
Great. Yes, much of the messaging that Discover Puerto Rico has out right now is surrounding that idea of being a safe place to visit, and ensuring that any potential visitors are meeting those protocols, and we're aligned with the current executive orders. So Alan, I'm curious what you're seeing in terms of how you're able to leverage the resources provided by Discover Puerto Rico to further the business of brands.
Yeah, going back to the campaign specifically, for us in the digital marketing industry and the e-commerce, it's all about traffic and the quality of traffic, not necessarily the quantity. So what I was saying, the average time that users that came from Discover Puerto Rico came, it doubled our average. The amount of spent, for example, our Average order last year in the same time was $33. In this year, through the campaign of Discover Puerto Rico, it went up to $54. So we're seeing people that really want to invest in the quality products that the brands are presenting in our website. And people get to know Puerto Rico through the craftsmanship of our artisans or our farmers. So it's another way to make them fall in love with the island. If you purchase something great, you want to go and visit that maker or that entrepreneur. So now we're even continue the campaign throughout the entire Christmas time, specifically on artisans. As you know, artisans here, they make their livelihood in public fairs. And now with the COVID, everyone needs to go online and sell. So while we towards those traffic to our artisans, we're gonna see an even better cultural approach to all our campaign and efforts.
Juan, I'm curious how your members are responding to what's happening now, and how this promotion is able to influence those partners.
Our members are having a tough time during the pandemic, but as business owners and entrepreneurs as they are, every single bit of good promotion, good advertising, something inviting to the island is music to their ears. So I spoke with a couple, and they were very excited about next year. So whatever we can do to promote that we're open for business, that we are coming back, and that we're ready to receive people and treat them well with the measures, but at the same time with a great experience, it's something that our members are eager to embrace. I wanted to point out that the campaign and what you guys are doing at DMO projects the island as a future-oriented community, and then it presents as us passing what happened. What happened, it happened. Every single country in the world has issues, but we are resilient. We overcame that. And now we have an island that is vibrant, that is ready to go to business, and an economy that's working very hard to elevate itself. So I think as time goes on and the messages of these campaigns continue to go and create an impact on those markets, and people start looking at Puerto Rico, of course our membership will greatly benefit, because every bit of great news promoting what we really are, it's awesome. Sometimes we are inward looking as an island, and maybe we do that more than we should. And we don't always take a look at the bigger picture. And I think what you guys are doing and what the results of the study, of the Halo study show, is that the bigger picture is that we have a product that we can sell to tourism. But then if we sell it correctly, we have an opportunity to bring more investment to Puerto Rico and more people taking a look at us as a place to start their life. So I think it goes in hand.
So Amir, related to that, I'm curious, so this study evaluated two campaigns, the Have We Met Yet campaign, the initial brand campaign of Discover Puerto Rico, as well as a campaign that was created in response to the earthquakes in January, the Go campaign. And so there was pretty minimal investment in both of these. So I'm curious if you can walk us through a little bit how you see these attributes changing over time, and as destinations continue to invest and put that messaging in place.
Yeah, well, obviously your messaging will evolve over time, right? Hopefully these vaccines are approved soon here in the U.S., and then we'll be able to and we'll be able to kind of start coming out of this pandemic. The industry can begin its recovery. But when you're looking at the messaging over time, still hitting those consumer hot buttons, still playing to the emotional heartstrings of the traveler, is going to be very, very important. Listen, you said it. You had a minimal, media budget. there, but you clearly did a great job in targeting it because the awareness was really, really high. So you think about it, if you can allocate, if additional resources come available, if you're able to, look what you did with what you had. Imagine what you can do moving forward, so to speak. And we get asked this question all the time when people talk about advertising effectiveness, and they said, where's the law of diminishing returns? Where do you spend? Where's that threshold of where you spend and so forth? Honestly, on the tourism side, we haven't seen it yet. In there, keep in mind, Coke and Pepsi, each spend over $1 billion a year on their advertising, and they're fighting for minuscule tenths of a percentage point of market share here, whereas destinations like Puerto Rico are in a competitive environment, spending much less against each other, but you have the ability to influence, and it's about targeting the right people who respond to the right hot buttons, right? And that's what you've done with this campaign. Moving forward, just keep monitoring the data. Look at how people's hot buttons and travel motivators and priorities shift. Somebody said it earlier, safety is going to be a big concern for a while longer coming out of this pandemic here. Safety was always in the top 10 of a traveler's hot buttons for decision making, but it was always number 9 or number 10 on the list. Well, now it's going to be one in the top 2 or 3, for at least the next few years. And safety means a lot of things to a lot of people. And again, take advantage. One of our colleagues here on this panel, talked about the fact that you've been your response to the pandemic has been recognized. You're clearly showing concern not just for your residents but also your visitors and how you've responded to the pandemic. So that's those are all things to capitalize on moving forward.
Thanks, Amir. So finally, one of the I think the best takeaways in regards to those that have visited Puerto Rico in the past 2 years, rating the destination higher on all these economic attributes. But one of the strongest lifts was on being a good place to start a business. Ella, I'm curious how you see Invest Puerto Rico seeking to leverage this favorable change in perception.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Alicia, as the island's business attraction and investment promotion organization, our role is to create awareness and position Puerto Rico favorably among external markets, driving the message that Puerto Rico is the ideal place to start a business, given our value proposition that includes a variety of things, from our attractive policy to our prominence and experience and decades of experience in different industry sectors, to the quality of place that I had mentioned before. And so, our marketing strategy is keenly focused on proactive outreach to our target audience is mainly located off island. Now, that said, we can see here, we can certainly benefit from the captive audience that tourism brings, which we seek to leverage with pointed tactics. And so, initiatives to leverage visitors for business promotion are part of our marketing plan. And with information, like the Halo study, our strategy and marketing teams are using these insights to weave them into our marketing strategy. And I can tell you, we can speak to multiple accounts of businesses that started on the island that came here, to visit. And I think, Puerto Rico's essence just captures so many inspiring stories about building a home here in Puerto Rico. And we've met with many companies that came here during a vacation and had this crazy idea, and that crazy business idea ended up being a reality, and that in turn created jobs and economic activity, which is something that we really seek to replicate. Just thinking about the folks here that come to visit as tourists and see, and feel, because I truly feel, and I know like Alan and Juan will probably agree, there's an energy here that's palpable and contagious. The ecosystem, the startup and entrepreneurial and tech ecosystem here is something that is really emerging, and it can be felt. And you go to these co-working spaces, and you go to Parallel 18, which is an accelerator, and you really feel it. And so I think, when you come here and you witness that firsthand, that really is something that translates into potential business investment in the future. So again, this robust tourism sector, and having folks come here and feel that really gives a preview of what to expect from the island. And so this is something that we're seeking to replicate, how to replicate and capture that audience that is already here, and convert that to business opportunity.
And I think Alan has a pretty personal story related to that. Alan, do you want to give us your perspective on how Brands came to be?
Yeah. My brother and I that are co-founders, we studied abroad. He studied in Boston, I studied down in Argentina, and we came back because we started to find out all of the Parallel 18 and all these programs. And we took the issue that was the diaspora and people living the island and turning it into a business. But we've been growing with the ecosystem, and we were part of the second class of Parallel 18. We got an investor thanks to Parallel 18, a fund out of El Paso, Texas. And I think when Invest Puerto Rico and Discover Puerto Rico start telling the success stories, not only of Brands of Puerto Rico, but companies like UBA, the Mumbai, in the tourism space, like Isla Caribe, down in Ponce, all these companies are great stories because entrepreneurs want to go where success is. So when we start letting the world know of all these cool startups and great entrepreneurs and programs that we have in place in the island, and they feel that vibe that you were talking about, they're gonna come. And the side of investors, where investors and capital will always go where the talent is. So I think there's a lot of work to do on showcasing that is possible and is relatively easy to start a business in Puerto Rico and to do it from Puerto Rico to the world. We've been doing it, and a lot of companies have been doing it, and I think that should be the case. There's people doing it, and come here and do it. You have incentive, you have a great talent pool, and you have beaches that you can go and chill on the weekend. So what better place to start a business than in Puerto Rico?
Well, I think a lot of people are thinking that now when they're considering, I can work from anywhere. Why am I working in the place I'm working? So I think we'll wrap up with Juan and Ella. If you want to talk us through some of the resources that would be available to those that might be interested in starting a business in Puerto Rico.
Sure. I can kick that off and then pass it to Juan. So Invest Puerto Rico is the entity. We are kind of like that first stop for any potential investor looking to start a business on the island. So our job is not only to promote Puerto Rico as a competitive investment jurisdiction, but to help these folks navigate what it is to establish the process of establishing their business on the island. So we can help with site selection, with real estate, with navigating the incentives, as well as relocation support, and connecting to different types of stakeholders. We partner with many different entities, including our core partner, which is the Department of Economic Development and Commerce. But we also partner with folks like the Chamber of Commerce, because no one organization, we all need to work together, right? And so we have collaborative agreements with many organizations to really help these investors throughout the process of establishing their business on the island. So if there's anybody that is interested, our website, investpr.org, has a plethora of information, of data, and from a process standpoint, the next steps that you need to embark on to be able to start a business in Puerto Rico. So from the Invest Puerto Rico side, this is something that this is our mission, this is our job. We're here to be able to guide investors, but we have partners like the Chamber of Commerce who also help do this, really help in making these things a reality. So I'll pass it on to Juan so he can chime in here.
Oh, adding to that, we have a very strong network of organizations that can help you get introduced to the local entrepreneurship community. And Chamber of Commerce is one, there are others, but you'll get introduced to most entrepreneurs in Puerto Rico by becoming a member of one of these organizations. The other thing is policy. When you want to do a business that needs a policy change, or a policy that needs to be tweaked so that the business model can work as it is supposed to, Chamber of Commerce and other organizations are there too to assist. And that, I think that's a tremendous opportunity when you're considering the island. So So these organizations can help you navigate the waters of what the becoming an entrepreneur in Puerto Rico is about. Another thing is, I think Ella said it, take a look at the incentive program that Puerto Rico has. It's a very strong incentive program right now to do a business in Puerto Rico, not just on the standpoint of taxes, but also on the standpoint of connections, money flowing to support new business owners. So I think we're ready, and I think what the campaign and the ad awareness that is being done through Discover Puerto Rico, to get people visiting, and then adding that to a good experience, it's something that is gonna continue creating lasting effects for the economy of Puerto Rico.
Thank you.
And Alicia, just to dovetail on that regarding, the incentives, we have such attractive policy for folks that want to start a business, but I do want to mention that these incentives are also, many of them are available to local folks as well. So, Puerto Rico has a good set of competitive tax incentives across the board that are not just available to folks that come from the outside, but also available to, local folks that want to be able to start a business as well.
That's great. Thank you all so much for your time and perspective this morning. Amir, thank you for sharing the research with us. Again, it's really interesting to see how tourism promotion not just impacts visitation and the perception of the product that's being promoted on the island, but certainly economic and community development, is why we're in this business. And being able to see that in some of the numbers that come along with that is really interesting. And I never heard the story, Amir, about the origination of the HALO study in terms of the military influence. So thank you all for your time and interest today. And we're certainly available offline to answer other questions. And we'll also be making the presentation available on Discover Puerto Rico's channels. So thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.